Again, if you don't know, my name is Kathy Parker. I'm the spontaneous problem captain for Northern California and Southern California. So it's an all Cal thing. You might have seen me or heard me on videotapes this year. Very long videotapes, but sorry about that. So we're getting ready and we've got a lot of people here. Oh my gosh, we've got 99 plus people checking in at the chat. We've got, oh my gosh, we are really getting up to almost 200 participants. And thanks for being on time, everyone, too. Fantastic. And really soon, guys, we're going to ask you a question that we want you to respond to, but we're going to give it a minute or so more. What do you think, Deidre?
Absolutely. We want to know who you are, though. Tell us in the chat box and tell us where you're hanging out, your general area, and what problem are you guys working on this year. We're super excited because we're looking at seeing all those solutions, hopefully in person. So we hope that you are getting it going here. And we have exciting news about spontaneous is just a little bit different. So we're excited to have you here.
I don't know what her video.
So yeah, if you guys would in, if you could all mute yourselves. And the reason we're not blocking you guys out is we have some really cool presenters that really like to talk with the team members. So they might ask you to talk with them even, or give some information. But if you haven't been asked to be unmuted, please make sure you mute yourself.
And whenever we'd like, we've got a lot of people. I'm kind of looking at those numbers. Miss Deidre, how many people are here? 199. Come on, can we get one more? Can we get two more? Come
There's
on
some
in.
folks in the waiting
200.
room. Yeah, we're going to get over 200 for sure.
Oh my gosh, guys, this is fantastic. We are so glad you're with us, and team members, we're so glad you're here too. You are in for a treat. That's all I can say. We are so excited you're with us tonight. And we're so excited we're here tonight. Going to be fun. Going to be really fun. I'm kind of wondering, Miss Deidre, if we could ask that first question of everybody. What do you think? Is this a good time?
Well, you know, it's your show, Spont Queen of California. So it's absolutely your call. And we're, you know, I don't know. It's up to you if you're going to push that button, girlfriend.
I thought you were going to push that button, girlfriend, but I can push that button too. So here we go, guys. I think I can launch the poll. So guys, you're going to see, this is just one of those question things. We're kind of curious. Okay, here we go. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Presenters to join in too. So make sure you click on those.
Yeah, we want to hear from everybody. Wow. Huh. Okay, so we've got a lot of people. We've got 150 or so who've answered. We still got a few more people figuring out about the answering. So come on in, guys. Let's figure it out. Wow. This is exciting because we have a lot of new OMers here to get our wisdom. Right now, 33% of our people are in their first year doing this. We still got a little more time happening on the poll. We've got 165 responders. What a span on this one. This is interesting. Now, I think if I end the poll, can I show the results, Miss Deidre?
Yeah, you end it.
Okay, well, should we end it?
Oh, I'd give it a little bit more. People are still answering.
I think so. We're up to 173 respondents. That's kind of cool. Some of the, oh, this is very interesting. Some of the people have been here a little while. Okay. We've got almost everybody. We might have everybody who's going to respond. I'm suspecting that. Some people kind of still in the waiting room. Are we ready, guys, to see a little bit about who's here? 5, 5.
You got 10 seconds here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cut it off, Kathy.
I've cut it, Missy. Okay, so here's what it looks like. A lot of you, 33%, actually 65% are in your first year, or you've been doing Odyssey for 2 to 3 years. And then we look, here's some 4 to 8 year veterans, about 20% approximately. Then the numbers get significantly lower. Some of you have been doing Odyssey for up to 20 years. Wow, 10 people. And then 21 to 40 years is 4 people. And then we've got 2 people who have been doing Odyssey for 42 years and still going. I wonder who those people are. Hard to know. But at any rate, I think we're here, guys. I think I'd like to get this show started. What do you think? Let's go. And we still got more people coming in, but I think we've got to start finding out about spontaneous and our presenters tonight. Guys, if Miss Deidre and I were talking about this a long time ago, I think it was October or November, and I don't know, I was thinking about who would be my dream team, and we named names. My dream team is here tonight. My wishing upon a star team of presenters is here tonight, everybody. And I'd like to sort of show you a little bit of who they are. So first off, this is California Odyssey. And for people who haven't seen it, this was our Spontivator at state finals. For many years at UC Riverside, we had a Spontivator, and it was filled with crazy spontaneous things. The last year we had the Spontivator, Dr. Sam Miklas was at our tournament. And so here's Dr. Sam in the Spontivator with an excited Odyssey team. And I'm there with some sort of a crown on. Oh, could we please not doodle on the screen? That would be appreciated. Thanks. So that's what's going on with that. This is our kind of slogan for Spontaneous in California, to think outside of the box. So welcome to the webinar, everybody. Welcome. And here we go. There is webinar etiquette, and it's please participate just like you were doing, letting us know where you were from and a little bit about your teams. Please mute yourself unless we ask you to unmute, and there's a good chance somebody will ask you. And that we will be monitoring the chat box for your questions as we go along. We've got some experts to answer what you might want to know, and they're creative thinkers, so this should be pretty good. Let's look a little bit about who is coming up the line for us. These are our presenters, everybody. We have Joy Kurtz, International Problem Captain for Spontaneous. I suspect one of the people who's been doing Odyssey for 42 years plus is Mrs. Joy Kurtz. And then we have Casey Kaw, who is the Assistant International Problem Captain to Mrs. Kurtz. We have Jan Johnson, who's from our own Inland Empire. She coached a lot, and she's been a World Finals spontaneous judge. So she's going to talk about the coaching and what it's like to be a World Finals spont judge. Then we have some omers, legendary omers. Logan Caper, he's been an omer for many years. He's also been a judge, and he's got a little future omer with him. And then there's Nelson Gerard, Nelson. He's an omer, but he's also like an old dude, ready to give you guys experience and advice and some good tricks that he's learned along the way. So these are our presenters tonight, and I'm just thrilled to have them share with you some of their knowledge. Whoops, wait a minute. We've got time. Wait a minute. Interruption, crowd. It's an Insta spot time. So get ready in that chat box. Here we go. It's an Insta spont. We love it, Insta spont. Here's the deal. You're going to use the chat box to share your answers for this spont challenge. Get ready. Get those fingers going. Here we go. Name things that are slow. Are they going fast?
Yes.
Oh man, you guys are going crazy for a slow problem.
Yes, we got a lot of sloths, the internet, my brain, your mama. Excellent. Wi-Fi. Yeah, we've all experienced that. Airplane mode. For sure. This is great, my friend. We have so many answers. Excellent. Goodness gracious.
Anybody, any of the presenters, is something standing out to you? Like Nelson or Logan or Joy or Casey or Jen?
Xfinity, I feel your pain, my friend.
Mondays, two-legged dogs. That was a funny one.
Yeah. A two-legged dog would be slow.
We had a play on it words. We had slow as in the location in the state of California.
Ah. Are they still coming in? Boy, they're still coming in.
Yes. Molasses. Oh yeah, I feel that pain too. Toaster. Me first thing in the morning, not fast.
Plate tectonics is a great one.
Microwave seconds. Yes, when you're ready for that popcorn.
Okay, guys, well, we're going to kind of move on. Thank you. You were pretty fast with naming things that are slow. I have to compliment you all. That's fun. So now, hey, this is kind of a little surprise. Did you know that one of our presenters has something to do with these Amazo Spontaneous kits? I don't know if you've ever ordered them from National, but they have sometimes available in the store these kits for spontaneous that really help a coach and anybody get going with spont without having to hunt for all the supplies. And wait a minute, who's this? Somebody telling people how to handle toothpicks and demonstrate it. Well, these two people involved with these items are our first superstar presenters. I'd like to introduce to you Joy Kurtz, our International Spontaneous Problem Captain, and then Casey Kaw, who's the International Assistant Spontaneous Problem Captain or something along those lines. So please, everybody, give them a California welcome by using those reaction hands at the bottom. Go for it, go for it. Let's see it happen. And I'm going to say, hey, Casey, it's yours.
Well, thanks, everyone. We're so excited to be here. Thanks for the invite. For us, it's not dinner time, it's nighttime. Joy and I are both on the East Coast. I'm in Michigan. She's in Florida right now. So I'm actually going to kick it to Joy. She's going to start us off, and then we're going to pull up a couple short presentations and let you guys know what's new for spontaneous this year. And then reiterate some old common creative, some myths that are out there, and try to help you be successful this year. So go ahead, Joy.
Thanks, Casey. Well, Kathy, I didn't know that you were going to ask what's slow, but I think I am certainly slow on the uptake, guys. I am one of the people that put 42 years. I actually did the math, and I've been doing Odyssey for 43 years. And I've done just about everything in Odyssey. There's only one thing I've never done, and I'm really excited that there are omers here because I was never an omer. I was never on a team. I started doing Odyssey the year after Odyssey started, when a group of kids who had done it the very first year came to my classroom and said, "You do Odyssey, of course, don't you?" And I'm sorry. And I said, "Of course I do Odyssey." And I was lucky because Dr. Sam had just come and talked to the teachers in the school district of Philadelphia about his program. And that's how I got started. A group of omers came to me and said, "You do it." Now, I had no idea what I was doing. I had even less of an idea what I was getting myself into. And here I am 43 years later, still trying to figure out what in the world am I doing. But I know that I'm having an awful lot of fun doing it. So I'm going to start by saying to all of you that you all should have fun with Odyssey of the Mind. That's the most important part. That's the part that kept me doing it year after year. I was a coach. I was a regional director. I was on a state board. I helped get the state of Pennsylvania running. Then I became the problem captain. And actually, Sammy Miklas, who is our fearless leader of CCI, just told me, he asked me if I remembered what year I started as problem captain. I honestly didn't. I knew it was in Maryland, but I couldn't remember. And I knew the problem was the comics, but because my son was on a team, and I had to back away from running spontaneous for that problem until after my son's team participated, because obviously I shouldn't know the problem that my son was going to be doing. And that was in the 1986-87 years. So I think that's what, 36, 30, God knows how long. Anyhow, so guys, I'm old and slow, but I love Odyssey of the Mind. So why should you do spontaneous? What is it about spontaneous that makes Kathy so excited and crazy enough to run North and South California? It's because spontaneous is so exciting all the time. It's always different. You never know what's going on. We never know what's going on. We never know what your solutions will be. Every single team brings something different to the plate. That's what's exciting about spontaneous. But how does spontaneous help you? This is really what I want to focus on. I'm going to focus something very differently from Casey. Casey's going to tell you about the changes and how to work on some of the stuff that may be specific to spontaneous. But I'm going to talk more generally. What does spontaneous do for you? Well, hopefully it does two things. Thing number one is, hopefully it helps you improve your long-term solutions, because your coach should just be on the sidelines, making sure that you've got plenty of food, place to work, people to pick you up and drop you off. Your coach doesn't solve the problems, you do. So if you have something in long-term that you're doing, for example, let's talk just about costumes. You're making costumes and you don't know how to shorten a skirt. You've never sewed in your life. Well, you can stick your answers in the chat on this one. How could you shorten that skirt without sewing? What could you do? Why don't you throw some answers up in that chat? Yep, says, yep, I'm agreeing. Scissors, tape, cut it, trim it. Staples, use a knife, cut it. Fold and hot glue, glue it. Throw, I didn't see that one. Throw something. Thumbtack, pull it up. Exactly. Now you're starting to think beyond just the bottom of it. Chop it. Fold it up. Machete. Your hands. Hold it up. Hot glue. Scrunch it up with a ruffle. Got it. Exactly, guys. There's a ton of ways without sewing. That's what you do when you're looking at your long-term problem. You take all the skills that you were learning in brainstorming and spontaneous and say, how can I make my background work? How can I shorten that skirt? How can we make our sign rotate? We don't have, I don't know, a motor or whatever. And I got to tell you that when I started coaching, I didn't know how to do anything. I had a team that brought the balsa wood to school. We got the balsa wood and they asked me, what do we do with this? And I said, I have no idea. I've never seen a piece of balsa wood in my life. I've never been in a pine wood derby, and I don't know how to build anything that holds weight. So as they were figuring it out, I'm learning all this stuff. And that's kind of what spontaneous is all about. It's about helping you learn, but in a fun way. So again, always goes back to that word fun. If you're not having fun, you are doing something wrong. Now, I know it's frustrating, it's tough. Sometimes you've tried and you just didn't solve the problem quite the way you wanted to. But let's think about that. What do you do then? Well, That's where your teammates come in. Because after you solve a problem, like the one we just did with this skirt, you want to talk to each other. You want to see what were your responses, who came up with better solutions. If it's a hands-on problem, what worked, what didn't. You talk to each other about it, and your coach might ask some questions. Usually, I hope the coaches, if you're on, are only asking, why did you do that? What made you think of that? Because your coaches sometimes have an idea in their head of how something should be done, and that's all they can think of. You're much smarter than your coaches. You're not afraid to try something that's a little bizarre, like somebody who said, staple the skirt. I am sure that somebody's mother, who is a wonderful seamstress, would probably tear her hair out if you use staples on a skirt. But we honestly, people would love it. I can't tell from a show of hands, but how many of you thought about using bubble gum to stick it together? I've seen that happen. Good, Charlie. I think Charlie raised her hand. That's the whole thing, is that you've got the ideas there. So there's nothing that you shouldn't try. But let's talk about the loopholes in problems. Sometimes you read the problem, you're a little confused, or you read the problem and you think, oh, well, they want me to do this or that, but if I did this, I could get around the problem. That's not what we want you to do. We really want you to solve the problem. And so if you're not quite sure, that's why you ask the judges, because in the problem it says, once your think time begins, or once the problem begins, you may ask questions, and you should ask those questions. And if the judge isn't able to answer the question because they feel it would be telling you how to solve the problem, then they'll say to you, well, let's look at this. Let's read number 2 again out loud to make sure you get it. But they're going to answer those questions. So it's really important that you think about, do I understand the problem, and solve the problem? And a little later, Casey's going to talk about the difference between solving the problem and making it common solution versus a creative solution. But you always want to think about, in the end, did I solve the problem? So if the problem had something to do with using a cup or a glass and putting something in the glass, or if we say use the glass to support something, glass doesn't necessarily have to sit the way we think of a glass of water. I'm not going to turn this over because I don't want to spill all over my computer, but it could certainly be on its side or upside down, or who knows, whatever you're going to come up with. So again, trying things and practicing for spontaneous doesn't have to be a formal problem. Just take a couple of objects. One of the best things you guys can do is take a turn asking your fellow teammates to do something. So you don't have to write a whole problem. Come into school or into your practice one day and bring an object, any object, a piece of paper, a pencil, a string, something that maybe nobody knows what it is, and make it a problem. Say to your team members, tell me all the things you can do with this object, or what are all the things you can do with a piece of paper, and see what they come up with and see whether you would have thought of those things. That's how you kind of start to use materials and start to do things a little bit differently. And if your coach is there and your coach is able to help by asking you, why did you think of that? Or how did you think of that? That's fabulous. But there's no such thing as a wrong answer in spontaneous. There may be one answer that's better than another, but it's never wrong. So again, if it isn't wrong, you should be having fun and laughing because it's funny. And sometimes it is funny, especially when things go wrong or when they go right and shock you. You're going to hear a story later, I think, from Logan about his favorite problem and what they did. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention before I turn this over to Casey. As I said, I've been doing this for I think it's about 34, 35 years. And over that time, I worked with Dr. Sam and then with Sammy and Casey and several others to help write the problems. And as we write the problems, we try to make the problems better and better and better. But I want you to think about something. When we have races in America, and I think your South California director, and Miss Lynn will know this. When we do any kind of sports competition, we go to run or we go to do something, we're competing with ourselves. We're always trying to make ourselves better, to go faster, etc. We're not trying to make the course harder. So runners run on the same course and they try to get a faster speed each time, or a higher pole vault, a higher jump. But we don't make the course purposely harder. That's the same with spontaneous. We do not try to make the problems harder for you or make it hard for you to understand them. And so one of the things that you should try to think about is, if I understand this problem, great. If I don't understand this problem, why don't I ask my teammates, when you read it, what confused you? Because that's the idea, is to try and figure out what we're asking. Make sure you know what we're asking you to do. And coaches, if you're on here, that's the thing that you need to do also. Make sure that your teams understand the trick to solving the spontaneous problem is to make sure you understand the problem. So look at it, look at what you get scored for. And sometimes it says that the team has practice time. Well, don't just talk about it, practice. When it's practice time, get out there, use those materials. And what are you supposed to do, everybody? There's one word. What are you supposed to do when you're doing spontaneous? Have, put in the chat, have fun, you got it. Casey, it's on you.
All right, thank you, Joy. All right, guys, we're gonna bring it back and I'm gonna share my screen here and just go through some slides from, this is a coaches training PowerPoint that I believe is actually still up on the website. It is available for you to get to, coaches. If not, I will follow up and figure out where that's at. I will make sure to get it to Kathy so that she can get it posted so you guys can see. So this is basic in-person spontaneous coaches training. This is a shortened version. Like I said, the rest of it's up. Just want to touch on real quick, kind of the basics. What is spontaneous? As Kathy said when we started this, there's a lot of you guys, this is your first, maybe your second year. A lot of people that are new to Odyssey. We're so excited to have you with us after the last couple of years. We're excited the program is still growing and moving in that direction. So spontaneous is that portion of the competition you're not going to know about until you get there. You're going to walk into a room with a group of judges, a group of adults that you've never seen before. They're going to give you a problem. You're going to have to solve it on the spot. As a former OMER myself, I can tell you we do everything we can to make it fun, to make sure you're having a good time, to try to keep you from being nervous. I competed for 10 years. I was still nervous on year 10 when I walked into the spontaneous room. Like Joy said, all we can do is tell you breathe and have a good time. Nobody's there to make it difficult. Nobody's there to make it hard, but you are going to think on your feet, and that kind of unknown's a little scary. So go into it with a positive attitude and the judges will help you through it. All right, different types of spontaneous problems. Obviously, you've probably been touching on these in your practice real quick, just a really brief overview. Verbal problems are similar to what we've been doing, these InstaSpont problems. So you're going to be given a question or a prompt of some sort, and you're just going to come with a verbal answer. Sometimes it's, one or two words. Sometimes it's more of putting a story together, but just something real basic. Hands-on problems is kind of task-driven. So you're going to be given a bunch of materials. You're going to ask to build something or make something move or manipulate objects in some way to solve the problem. And then we have what we call a verbal hands-on, and verbal hands-on is a combination of the two. So you're going to have something physical that you have to do something with, make some changes, move it, whatever it happens to be. And then you're going to also have to tell the judges about what your solution is. So it's that kind of combination. Make sure in your practices that you're working on all three, because you won't know until you walk into the spontaneous room what type of a problem we're going to throw at you. So biggest part of spontaneous is we break it down to common versus creative. So common responses are, we said name things that are slow. We started out there and we talked about turtles and sloths and those animals that come to your head right away, that those slow moving animals. Deidre pointed out that somebody said, kind of used a play on words a little bit. That makes it more creative. So different things that you can do to make responses more creative. We talk about using rhymes, using a famous character reference, movies or song titles. I lost some of my slides I thought were in here. That's okay. So for example, one of the other slides in the other presentation that you coaches, again, you can find and you can see, we talk about, name ways to get to school. And somebody might say you could take a train. Okay, a train is a common response. It's like taking a car, taking any type of transportation that we're used to. You can take a train. But if I said, I'm Harry Potter and I'm going to take the Hogwarts Express to get to school, that's a little more creative because now I've taken that response and I've added a little bit something more to it. All right. Biggest thing we want to talk about. Oh, maybe I do. Sorry. Biggest thing is they have to relate back to the problem. So this is something that that we've been talking about. So for example, name things that you can collect. Collectors and what they collect. Common response, somebody collects coins. We probably all know somebody that collects coins, but a leprechaun collecting those coins at the end of a rainbow is more creative. Okay. Then we throw out answers. We'll hear answers. You see rainbows after it rains. It has nothing to do with the problem. It doesn't talk about who's collecting. It doesn't talk about what they're collecting. Therefore, you're not going to get the creativity points. Rainbows after it rains might seem creative, but the reality is it has nothing to do with a collector. So you're just going to get 1 point for that response. Those are the responses you want to stay away from. You need to make sure that they go back and they relate to the prompt of the problem. Okay, so this is something that it's been a real big push for us the last couple of years, is trying to remind everybody it's great when a team can walk into the room and they can use a famous character or a song title in every one of their responses. It seems like a lot of fun and it might make the judges smile, but you're not going to get those creative points for it unless it actually relates to the problem itself. Okay. The other couple things just real quick on here, I want to throw out, again, this is a coaches training PowerPoint, so we'll make sure you guys have access to this. As a coach, one of your biggest things is brainstorm with your team. And this can be while you're working on your long-term problem. Like Joy said, you can throw it out. Team members, you guys can throw out things like Joy used the skirt example. If you're working on building your vehicle and you're trying to figure out how do we want to steer this? Well, what are different things we can use to make a steering wheel? And everybody just starts throwing out responses. That is brainstorming. So you can relate that. You can use brainstorming in every aspect of your Odyssey journey. And really what it is, it's a verbal spontaneous problem, and it's setting you up and it's helping you out get prepared for those problems. Okay. The other real important thing that we want to focus, we really like the coaches to kind of focus on a little bit, is debriefing with your team. Okay. So run through a problem, go through the problem uninterrupted, let the team try to solve the problem. And then afterwards, step back and talk about it. What was the intent? What were your solutions? Did they work? Didn't they work? What could we have done differently? Talk about it and talk it through. Sometimes the most creative solutions to the problem are the second time you run it, or even the third or fourth time, because the kids start getting used to what the problem is and they stop worrying about those details and really start trying to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to run a problem 2, 3, 4 times. Maybe do it once and wait a couple weeks and come back at another practice and try it again and see what happens. Okay. Couple other little things we want to touch on. I'm going to switch screens here. So this one is, you guys can't see that. Hold on. Sorry, I got to go to the other one. Screen share. This one. Okay, there we go. All right, I hope you can see that. All right, so changes for this year. Any of you that have been around more than 1 year, some of this is going to seem real new to you, especially if you were with us before this whole pandemic thing hit and virtual became part of our lives. Who will compete? All 7 team members are highly encouraged and expected to participate in spontaneous. So where previously you would go into the room, they would tell you if it was a hands-on or a verbal problem, and only 5 or up to 5 team members would actually participate. Now all 7 team members will participate and will compete. Okay. Verbal problems, you've seen cards. We've used response cards to limit response numbers. We've used that for many, many years. We're now switching that to tokens of some sort. So a token might be a little plastic chip, might look like a poker chip. It might be pennies on the table, some type of coin, whatever the problem captain decides to use. There's going to be some type of a token. You're going to have a set number of those tokens for your team to use to give responses. When you give the response, you're going to select your token. Whichever team member is going to give the response, they're going to select their token, and they're going to place that token in a container just like they would with cards. The difference now is team members can respond in any order they want, and each individual team member can give as many responses as they want. So for you team members that are sitting out there that are thinking, you know, spontaneous isn't really my thing, I never used to participate, now they're telling me I have to, go into the room, be part of the team, stand at the table. Maybe you come up with that one really great creative answer or that one little piece to the solution. You can help your team out, but don't be nervous and don't worry about it. If you only give 1 or 2 responses, that's absolutely fine. If you've got somebody on your team that's super creative and they give 5, 6, 7, even 10 responses, that's okay too. It is up to your team to decide how you divide up those responses and get the most points you possibly can.
Hey, Casey, we had a really quick question from Levi in the chat. What if our team doesn't have 7 team members?
Sure, absolutely. So like before, we're very much encouraging every team member that you have can go into the room. Problems will be written that you will not be at a disadvantage if you only have 6 instead of 7. You're still shooting for that 5 minimum that we've always kind of had. You're looking for at least 5 to go into that spontaneous room with you, be part of your long-term solution. Those things that the problems are written with kind of that thought in mind that you're going to have at least 5 team members. However, we've had team members come into teams come into world finals with maybe 3 or 4 team members, and they've been very successful. So it's really going to come down to the problem itself that you get and how well your team works together to solve that problem. Okay, great question.
I saw a question in the chat that I would like to clarify. People are asking, if you have 7, can you still use only 5? We want all 7 team members to go into the room and to be part of the team. It's up to the team to decide whether you're going to use 4 members, 2 members are going to answer, all 7 are going to answer. The important thing is that this does 2 things for you. Number one, it gives a chance for somebody who perhaps is a little slower at responding to think about the response and jump in with that response when they're ready. And all they have to do is put a token in and then respond. But it also means that everybody knows the problem. No more having to tell anybody outside of the room what was the problem, or have anyone who didn't participate say, well, I would have done it differently. The other question is, what if you only have 5 or 6? And Casey answered that. The number of people who are on your team are the number who should go in and participate.
Casey, we also had another great question though. If we have all these tokens, what happens when we run out of tokens in there though?
All right, so just like your cards that you're used to, when you're out of tokens, you're out of responses. So common, a lot of times we'll see 35 responses given to a team. Not always, but a lot of times. So chances are there's going to be 35 tokens spread out on the table in front of you. They're not going to be in stacks. They're just randomly going to be spread out on the table. When you respond, you pick up a token, you put it in the container, and you give your response. When your team's out of tokens, or when the time runs out, your team is done. So, and that brings up this really good point. Please remember to listen in all types of problems. Listen very closely to the directions. we're trying to include in the actual directions of the problem, how many responses you're going to be given. So the problem may say you have 35 tokens on the table. So you'll know that your team has 35 responses. For those hands-on verbal problems, it might be 15 or 21. You know, depending on how many responses are there, you as a team need to decide how you want to divide those up and use them until they're gone.
There was another good question. What if two team members try to answer at the same time? This is the same as when you had cards. Team member has to pick up a coin, give a response, and put the coin or the token or the marble or whatever it is that your person has put out into the container before the next person goes. You need to practice in your practice sessions having all 17 members go. It doesn't mean that you can't go in order if you want. Nobody is saying you can't use the old method of going around the table if that's what your team chooses. But there's no more anybody being stuck, because if one team member doesn't answer, someone else can. I'm seeing a lot of good questions. Count, does everyone have to say something? No, everyone does not have to say something. The numbers on the cups just were there to show you that the team members don't have to respond 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on that particular slide. There was a question, will we be negatively judged if someone doesn't respond? No, there's no such thing as negative and spontaneous. You won't be negatively judged. However, in hands-on problems where there's somebody, somebody doing a solution to something, it may be that you've talked it over and decided who's going to do what. So, you know, how well the team works together may get points. There was a question about, I saw a good one, a couple questions.
So here's one, are the tokens always used for verbal spontaneous? Almost always, pretty much always, you are going to see some type of something used to track how many responses are given. So yeah, basically you're going to see tokens, you might see objects, depending on the type of problem, but there's always going to be some type of an object that essentially is counting how many responses you've given. And then Kimberly asked, can you repeat an answer? Give you a little inside judging tip. You should never repeat an answer. If you do, regardless of what the answer is, you're going to get a common response for that. So even if it's super, super creative and you thought it was great, so I'm going to say it again, you're not going to get a creative response the next time around.
I wanted to look, there was one question, guys, I saw in there. If all 17 members are working on something all at once, but what if multiple people are working on one item? Would that be thought of badly? And I'm kind of thinking kids have split up and they're doing teamwork. They're kind of breaking it down and working together. And teamwork is always a scoring category for a hands-on problem. Kind of sounds like teamwork to me. And then somebody also asked about sanitizing the tokens. Yep, we've got that. We've been talking about how to keep clean tokens going. So we're really into pandemic protocols. We've gotten some great advice from National, and we've been brainstorming it. We will make sure we keep the kids safe on that.
Okay, I have a couple to answer. Somebody asked if one person is stuck, is the team stuck? There is no more of that, because there is no, you're not stuck. You don't have to go in any order. No, anybody may respond. So no, the team doesn't get stuck. Question was, may we bring pencil and paper in to jot things down? No, anything that you would be jotting down, if we were going to allow it, the pencil and paper would be provided by us. There are some problems where we give you the cards that have values on them. The coaches, that's in your training, in the training. Please look at that. I'm not going to take up the time now, but those cards, you won't have a token or anything on the table, because you'll hold up the card and you'll get the score that correlates to that, and you'll put that in the container. There was a question, can we give a conjoined answer? In other words, can team number one answer and then team number two finish that answer? No, it's a single team member unless you're doing a problem where it says team member number one or one team member will start and another team member needs to continue. So you've got to listen carefully to how the problem is written. And yes, there's a time limit as before. Most problems have an 8-minute time limit for verbals, sometimes a little bit less. I think I covered everything that I saw coming up quickly on the chat.
Well, I'd like to ask you, Joy or Casey, I think that maybe we need to repeat the one slide you said. So we're getting lots of specific questions about how to do kind of different specific answers. And I think Casey's tip was you need to listen to the problem and read it if it's on the table, because there's always a copy on the table if teams want to read instead of listen. So I don't know, Casey, what do we need to do when we enter that room? Probably
Let's listen to the specifics from the judge regarding that problem.
And also there should be 2 copies of the problem there. And kids, if you need to pick it up, and judges, you know, there's no rule that says after we've read the problem, one person or 2 on the team can't pick it up and look at it again if you need to. Again, most of the directions will be given in the problem. And I'm not going to say that every problem has an 8-minute time limit, because you could hit a problem that's a 2-part problem. You have 2 minutes for the first part and 5 minutes for the second. Again, you have to listen. Somebody asked, oh darn it, there was a good question and I can't remember what it was. If it was a verbal hands-on and it was, for example, pipe cleaners, can we take other team members' pipe cleaners? Again, you've got to look at the direction. It depends. In some problems you can share, in some problems you can't. That's why it's spontaneous. You never know until you get in there. There is always a time limit to answer that. I think we covered everything, but
yep. Somebody asked Joy, will we get more points if we give a bunch of common answers or just a couple super creative answers? So part of that directions that you're going to get from the judges are going to include your point values. How many points do you get for a common? How many points you can get for a creative? Okay, and that's something that you as a team should be working on, some time management when you're doing your practice. I saw a lot of people answer. Everybody kept saying how much time, how much time. A lot of people said 8 minutes. That's pretty common. A lot of our problems will have 8 minutes for verbal responses. So get used to that. Run that in your practice. Get a feel for how much 8 minutes feels like. If you still have 7 minutes left and you've already given your 35 responses, we probably need to slow down, take our time, and think of some more creative responses instead of throwing out a bunch of common. But when you get down to the point where there's only a little bit of time left, and you can always ask the judges how much time remains, they will tell you. And if the judges, sorry, go ahead, Joy.
no, go ahead. I was going to answer another
All right,
question.
so if the judges tell you there's 30 seconds remaining, and sometimes that time warning is built into the problem, when they tell you there's 30 seconds left and you still have 10 tokens sitting on the table, they're worth 0 if you don't give some type of response and get them in. So whether it's common or creative, at that point, you just want to get a response, even a common one, and get it in and at least get 1 point instead of 0.
There's a question here about discussing problems with discussing the question with other team members. Some of the problems will say that you may talk to each other, and even in verbal, some of the problems will say you may not talk. Again, that's a specific. But there was a question about virtual. The virtual will be similar to last year's virtual for the online teams. But I think that's a completely different set of situations. So I wouldn't confuse apples and oranges here for the purposes of teams. And I saw somebody asked a question who must be someone who's done this for a number of years, wanted to know about something about 2-part. Yes, there are 2-part problems. And yes, there are will be hands-on spontaneous problems available to your region and your state, whether Kathy, your spontaneous guru, decides to use which ones, that will be her surprise for you.
So I'm going to jump in here though, guys, because we do have students on here and I know they're super excited to hear from team members that have been in that super cool room. And coaches, after the team members talk next, we're going to have specific time for coaches. And Michelle, I promise, I saw your hand up. We'll get to you if you have a question. Okay, you're good. And but I know that the kiddos all are supposed to be doing homework pretty soon, right? And just so you guys know, we're from across the United States for our presenters. So some of them are sitting in the eastern part of the United States. So it's super late for them. It's 9 o'clock back there for them, almost 10 o'clock. And we have 2 other people that are coming from the middle of the United States. And guess what? All these people have to go to work tomorrow too. So we're super excited to have them here. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy to get us going. I promise, hang on to your questions. At the end, we're going to have plenty of time for you to ask questions. We just want to make sure the team members get their answers so they can jump off, get dinner, and do that famous homework. But the last thing I want to say is, we do talk among our team while we're in the room, but what happens in spontaneous stays in spontaneous. So we don't share that information outside of that little room. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Kathy. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. And man, it's hard when Joy's giving such amazing advice and Casey's chiming in. It's like we've got gold here. But you know what? We had some fun with the challenge I sent out to teams back in December. And I asked you, this is a classic toothpick challenge problem. 50 toothpicks. They have to have one end only touching on the table. And they can't touch each other. So I asked teams, could you send in your solutions? And so think about how your team solved this problem, everybody. And then let's see how other kids approached it. It's kind of fun. We don't usually get to see the other spot solutions. So I think we've got it here. Hang on. Uh-oh, Bob, we're not moving. Oops. Maybe we're just seeing the Terra Linda High School team doing this. Well, and I heard later on, I found out that this was a playground they created. They came up with a theme. Boy, I'm kind of frustrated. This is sad. Maybe I could just go, well, we're going to go on though, because I know we have some people who are not sad that we're going to go to next. Look at these people. Nelson Gerard, Logan Caper, future Omer. Let's give those thumbs up to these Omers who are here to share with you tonight. These old dudes, as one of them would call us. So go ahead, guys. I'm going to stop sharing. This is your show. Go ahead and share.
All right. So I believe Nelson is going to be sharing the slides with us tonight.
I think he can supersede me, but I'm not positive.
I cannot.
I'll stop now. So just come on in there, Nelson. You can go.
All right. So, hi guys. My name is Nelson Gerard, and I was in Odyssey for 10 years. So I got a little bit of experience, been inside the room, some might say. And I got my friend Logan here. He'll talk to you about his experience.
Hi, everybody. I'm Logan Caper. I was in Odyssey for 10 years as well. And then I realized today I have judged in Odyssey longer than I actually ever competed in Odyssey. So there you go. So today we want to just kind of give you some of our own insights into what Spont was like as competitors. And, we've got collectively between us 20 years of experience, and we want to let you in on, what things look like from our point of view. So go ahead, Nelson, if you want to start us off here.
Yeah, so we're just going to start talking about what's it like being inside the room, what are our rituals before, during, and after we go into spontaneous, some of our little secrets and working together as a team, and, mostly just how to have fun with it. So, the biggest part of spontaneous is feeling a little anxious before going in. no one knows what the problem is going to be. You don't know what to expect. And it's a very exciting moment, but it does feel like a test at sometimes. But in reality, it's your time to shine. So get in there and have fun and show your individual creativity.
Yeah. Nelson, did you guys ever do anything before you went into the room in Spont to kind of help you guys warm up at all? Is that something you would do?
Yeah. So before going into the room, we had some traditions. We had some little games that we would play. Lifting a stick as a team with one finger underneath, and doing some fun short practice problems. And you really just got to get the energy up. I don't know about you, Logan, but did you guys have any other tricks that you guys did before going in?
We would definitely do a lot of games beforehand. If we had the time, if long term hadn't just happened, we would be working together as a group, and sometimes we'd bring a box of materials to competition with us just to play around with and try and do some quick last minute spont problems just to get ourselves warmed up a little bit. So it could be something as simple as bringing some pipe cleaners and trying to come up with some creative uses for pipe cleaners, or having some old spont problems that we remembered from way back just to get ourselves warmed up a little bit, especially with a verbal type of problem.
Yeah, I agree. Getting ready before going into the room is one of the biggest parts for sure, and it's honestly one of the most fun parts too. I think it's
Definitely.
fun and little games and hanging out with your friends and getting ready for it. So
Definitely, yeah. Walking into the room with a smile and being excited, I think, is the best way you can go into that room. It just makes the judges know that you're happy to be there, and I think it just lightens the mood and kind of takes some of that stress off as well.
So once you get into the room, I know that's when it gets a little stressful as well. But this is your time to think about it and listen and learn about what you guys can do. Logan,
Yeah,
if you want to talk, yeah.
For sure. And when you're inside the room, it's important to have fun, but also realize that sometimes you're taking these risks as a team, and sometimes these risks don't play out, and failure is definitely a part of spontaneous. We don't like to talk about it very often because it's one of the scariest things that can happen. But sometimes things happen that you're not planning for, and that's what makes it spontaneous. And we just have to make sure that we're trying our best when we're inside that room, and we have to be ready to push our solution to the point of failure, and even step it back a little bit. But when we're inside that room, it's all about letting your practicing kind of take over. You guys should be practicing almost every time you meet. That's my opinion. And so once you get into that room, you're letting your practice kind of help guide what you're doing. And from there, you can kind of relax a little bit and have fun with it. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask if you had any tricks on what you guys would do during practice to kind of, so you could recreate your practice inside that room,
Right. So one thing we would always do is when we were practicing spontaneous, we would have a couple team members sit out of each problem and just offer their own judgments. That way, it's not just on our coaches to help us with our own problems. It's our own team members providing us feedback, whether it's a verbal problem where they're saying, hey, I felt this, and this were very common responses, but these three specifically, I wrote them down. Those were very creative responses. That kind of helps you learn your team and know what each other's strengths are, but it also kind of helps you build that confidence a little bit. When it came to hands-on problems, we would do very much the same thing. And it wasn't just about learning all those little tricks on how to, use the materials the right way and how to make sure you know how to fold paper and use spaghetti. It's all about learning this team member is very good at doing this specifically, and this team member is great at making sure they're reading through the problem and understanding the problem and asking any important questions to the judges. I see in the chat somebody saying have team members write and judge their own spontaneous problems. It helps them see it from a different perspective. Absolutely. Have team members write their own problems and then have them judge those problems themselves. What else would you do, Nelson, with your own teams to kind of help with that practicing?
I agree with everything that you're saying, and teamwork is actually a surprisingly big part of spontaneous. Sometimes it feels kind of individual, but you are still working as a team. So I think it's very crucial for everyone to know everyone's strengths and what they are knowledgeable about, and just how to like riff off of each other and get your best answers out. So yeah, I think you get your best answers when the team's just having fun being the team, you know? So
Definitely.
we'll keep going. So once you get out of spontaneous, now that's the exciting part. Because run out of there like you're on top of the world. We always had some kind of like candy waiting for us or a treat or something. So it was very exciting getting out of spontaneous too, which also made it going in just as fun. So did you guys have any little traditions you had after spont was over?
Afterwards, our team would always hold hands and sing "Build Me Up, Buttercup" as soon as we got out of the spont room, just to kind of get rid of some of that stress and let it all out. But you know, every team has their own thing, but you've got all this energy. You just need to kind of let it go and enjoy the moment of having done a fantastic job, or having done a job that you guys know you might have done better. But there's a lot of energy just to let go. And one thing we would always do is after the competition, we wouldn't necessarily talk to our coaches about it, or our other, any other teams we knew, but we would even try and recreate that problem on our own, just to see, hey, could we have done this any better ourselves? It's easier with, a verbal problem. It's not quite so easy with a hands-on problem. But I think it's really important, once you've had a little bit of time, to talk this over with just your team, to kind of, debrief and think about, how could we have done this better? Did we do a fantastic job? We did a great job. Is there any way we could have improved? And I think that's a very common thing for a lot of teams across the board, is you just get so excited about it. You need to kind of talk about it with your team, but nobody else until tournament season is over. Right.
So yeah, that was a good tip right there. We also have a few more that we've kind of come across over the years. And one of the big ones is using what your team has to offer. So like Logan was talking about doing practice problems and having some other team members observe and score each other. So you can give each other that feedback to help them go to the next level and help your team function a little bit better. We also beforehand like to talk about the risks and the rewards of hands-on and verbal problems too. So there's a lot of ways to think about problems that'll allow you to figure out where the points are at, what are the easy ones to get, what are the hard ones to get. Logan might have some more on that.
Yeah, so I think especially with something like a hands-on problem, where you might be going for a certain amount of points, or you're building a structure, or you're trying to launch a ping pong ball into a target. Sometimes there are risks with going a little bit too far with what you're doing. If you build that tower too high, is it going to fall over and you get 2 points versus 50 points? So it's important that you kind of understand that, these are the team members who are taking the risks. How do we decide when enough is enough, and when, do we make our voices heard and listen to those voices? And how do we, make sure that we are communicating with each other the right, time to say, okay, that's enough risk. We're going to stick with the points we have. And it's different for every team, but it's definitely a good conversation to have with your team members. Like, who's going to be in charge if there's going to be somebody in charge? Do you have, do you take a quick vote? Okay, I think we're done. Those are great things to, talk about beforehand. And, going down the list here, each team member, sometimes you want to have each team member have a role within the team, somebody who can check the time with the judges. Okay, hey judges, how much time do we have left to do this? Somebody who will read through the problem and make sure that you're not missing anything. Sometimes you have 2 people who do that. It's always a great idea to, assign roles within the team, just so that everybody kind of can fall into those practiced roles, and then switch it up every now and then too. Give everybody a chance to practice with those roles and see where your strengths lie. Did you have any specific role within your groups, Nelson, that you really like to do?
Yeah, our group definitely had roles amongst the team. We had like a leadership role, a problem, rule person, timekeeper, materials person. So we always had someone on each, task so we could stay organized and stay on time, because that time does sneak up on you sometimes.
Yes.
So yeah, I enjoyed being the leader and really leading my team forward. Maybe not necessarily giving all the ideas, but bringing them together so they can be the most effective. But most importantly, one of
I'm
key
sorry to
features-
interrupt. Could you just repeat those roles again? That's really helpful if you wouldn't mind, like leadership, equip.
yeah, so we had a leader role, we had a rules person, a timekeeper, we had a materials person for hands-on. Did you have any more, Logan?
Trying to think, I think you're very much on a timekeeper, rules. Sometimes we even had two people on rules just to do a quick read through, not the whole time, just to say, hey, is there any kind of loophole we can get away within these rules that's going to get us a little bit more points that not everybody might have thought of? Like, can we lean this tower against the wall instead of building it freestanding, kind of thing? And you can definitely ask judges questions. You don't have to do this silently and try and interpret it as best as you can. Have somebody whose job it is, dedicated, who outgoing, might not mind, hey, you're going to be the person who asks all these questions to the judges. They can handle it. Somebody else might be very shy.
So when it comes to like listening is one of the big things. Listening to the problem when they're speaking it or talking to you about it at the beginning. That's your time to find all the, where the points are at, what are the loopholes, what are they saying, what aren't they saying as well. So it's very important to listen to that, because you can find little tricks that'll help you get around the problem, which is where the creativity lies and where the good points are at. So Logan, did you have any tips on like analyzing points and trying to figure out where to put your time?
Yeah, typically the first thing we do is, that second bullet point right there is, if we're doing a hands-on problem, doesn't sound like so much for verbal hands-on problems anymore. Where can you get those unlimited points? Is there anything you can do where you can just keep earning points until the judges say, okay, time's up? That's definitely where you want to focus all your energy. But then you said it specifically, is there anything that the problem is not saying? And this is where going through old spontaneous problems can really help. You can practice by saying, okay, look at all these problems. How would we solve this? And is there anything that might be overlooked that can get us points? And of course, off the top of my head right now, I can't think of any. But, this is something our coach, Barbara Johnson, who is in the audience. Hi, Barbara, you're amazing. She would go over with us all the time is, how can you get the most out of these points? And when you're done practicing, when time's up, in a practice session, it doesn't necessarily mean you're done talking about it. You can go over this again and even try and solve it again. How can you do this the best way? And something that Kathy actually mentioned yesterday that I think is a great idea. Are there any materials that your team was using previously and over relying on that you can take away and try and solve this problem in a different way? And I like what I'm seeing in the chat. Watch out for things that seem vague. There might be loopholes there. That is definitely the best tip. I don't have any advice for that other than, is there something that's just kind of hinted at, but there's no definite language on? That's where you're going to find the wiggle room you need to succeed in this problem.
Yeah, so when it comes to decoding the problems, ask lots of questions, talk with your team. It might spark something. Listen very carefully for what is and isn't there, and that's a big part of it for sure. Yeah, we got a couple extra little tips. Do you have any more, Logan?
Yeah, so I'll just go off of what I had down here. A great activity, if you're not practicing spontaneous in the moment, is play games with your teammates. You know, if you're not working on your long-term solution, you're just hanging out with everybody, play games. You know, play catchphrase, play taboo, play cranium is a fantastic game to play with your team. You know, mousetrap, these are all games that kind of get you guys thinking. They boost your spirit, and they, you know, just kind of get everybody going and on the same page sometimes. There's one thing I actually didn't write down here that I talked about earlier, and that is one thing my team always worked on was, you know, working on those teamwork points that sometimes they kind of sneak in there on the problems as you're getting judged 15 points for teamwork. If your team doesn't really get along, it doesn't act like a team, those are 15 points you're leaving on the floor. And sometimes you don't necessarily get along with all the members of your team, but it's important that you practice good teamwork. And that means when we were working on our long-term solution, we would pretend there was a spontaneous judge in the room judging us on our teamwork. Because if you practice being a polite, kind member of your team who's including everybody, you're not acting, you are becoming a good team. And so once you have that practice, you don't need to pretend to be a good team, because I know there's a lot of people who pretend to be a good teammate. You become a great team, even if there are still conflicts. So that's one of my biggest ones, is spend the time with your team that you need in order to actually become a team.
Yeah, being a team
What about you,
that's spontaneous is a massive part of it. I've definitely seen some teams that struggle to get those teamwork points, which should just be 3 points.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, when you're in there, play off of everyone's strengths. It's a good idea to have some extra topics in your head that you really know well in case you get stuck. But sounds like with the new layout of spontaneous, teamwork's going to be pretty big, because you can't necessarily get stuck because your other teammate can pick up where you left off at. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then most importantly, what does your team have that the others don't? And that's you. You have each other. So make sure to use what you guys have, your strengths, and be yourselves. Yeah, I think mostly if you're joking around and having fun with your friends, you're gonna come up with some more ridiculous ideas. Your brain's gonna be moving a lot better. You start working well with your team, you're riffing off of each other. And I think that's what makes spontaneous the most fun. What about you, Logan?
I think that's exactly right. Not knowing what you're walking into until you get in there is the best part about spontaneous, and it's also the most anxiety-inducing parts about spontaneous. And you know, those two go together very well. It's what makes it unique. It is one of the hardest things for people who don't do Odyssey. It is one of the hardest things to explain to people who have never heard of Odyssey before. And I think it is one of the best things about Odyssey. You know, one thing I'm reading kind of some of the notes I've prepared here, and before, you know, I let you guys go, I want to make sure that, you know, we all understand that your coaches are amazing, and they are there to start your conversations about spontaneous, and they're there to provide opportunities. But it's really about you working together as a team and making sure that you are communicating with each other and learning your strengths and practicing together is really what's going to make you a great spontaneous team. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, so I think overall what we're saying is if you're having fun and your team's having fun, then the judges are going to have fun with you too, and everyone's going to get scored better. So don't want to take up too much time. So unless you got anything else to say, Logan, I think I'm going to hand it back off to Kathy.
It's all yours, Kathy.
Yes.
Thanks, Nelson.
I just wanted to ask, you guys have been super successful with Spont, but did you have any epic fails too? And how did you deal with that? Because we all have some fails sometimes.
You know, I definitely had some fails. There were some fails that prevented my team from advancing on to different levels of competition. There were some successes that got us to other levels of competition. But when you fail, you just realize, you know, we have to practice. We're not going to let it get to us too bad, and we're just going to do better next year. What about you, Nelson?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's some days you go in there and everything works perfectly, and other days you just can't get that tower to stand up. So,
Exactly.
yeah, there's definitely some tough problems, but even if you don't get all the points, you can still get a good score by showing your creativity and having fun. And so, yeah, there's definitely some successes and some failures, but we try to
sure.
the
I
successes.
was just going to go back. Logan was on a team once that was really known for its performance and attention to detail in every element of the long term. But what did it for you, Logan, when you stood up on the world finals stage getting a first place trophy?
Yes, it was not our long-term or our style that got first place for us. It was our spontaneous score. So it is important. Do not forget about spontaneous.
Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. I loved listening to you guys. That's just gold as far as I'm concerned. And we have a final presenter who's amazing. She does it all. I'd like to introduce you.
Just so, Kathy, I'm going to jump in here. Just so kids know, if you want to jump off, a lot of this is going to be for coaches. So we totally understand if you guys need to do something, but you are more than welcome to stay, ask questions all along the way. And if you think of any questions for any of our other presenters that have already talked, be sure and put them in the chat box and we'll make sure those get answered. So I just wanted to jump in there because it's getting kind of late for some of the kiddos.
Yeah, and thanks. And guys, we have been so happy seeing the teams gathered around a screen. And all of you out there, you're what make us get excited about Odyssey. So we're so glad you've been here. And if you can hang out, hang out. But if you need to do homework, do homework. Okay, this is Miss Jan Johnson. Let me go back for a second. And Jan, are you there? Let's give her some reaction with clapping hands. Give it away for Miss Jan.
Hello, everybody. I've had the pleasure of volunteering with Odyssey of the Mind and I had to do the math, 25 years now. I was a parent, a school coordinator, coach, regional director, and spontaneous judge. So as a coach in primary and the 3 divisions, I always focused on spontaneous, but my hat is off to all of you brave souls who also tackle the challenge of coaching long-term problems. So congratulations to you and thank you very, very much. I've totally enjoyed Logan and Nelson's presentation. They brought up so much that I was very familiar with as far as teamwork and having fun. And that's really the focus, particularly with spontaneous. There's so many adventures and challenges to complete with your team. Here's a challenge I once posed to a high school team. We were in my house, and this was long ago. The question was, transport your teammates from one end of the hallway to the other without letting your feet touch the ground. And what followed was a hooting and hollering adventure filled with fun and laughter. And they solved the problem too. Odyssey teams never cease to amaze. Thinking back to when I first started coaching, I learned that time was well spent researching creativity and its many components so that I would have a good understanding of it. Try it, coaches, because then you can go back and work with that knowledge with your team at their level of understanding. Our state website has a multitude of ideas and practice problems, many of which were shared with us by other associations, and we thank them for that. The problems can be found under the Coach tab on both SoCal Odyssey and on NorCal Odyssey. A co-coach or perhaps a dreamy parent can step up and be in charge of spontaneous practice for the team, including gathering materials needed for practice once a week. So, with your direct teaching, you can include examples of what might be considered creative responses. One practice technique you could utilize is finding words within a word. For example, cat is in the word catch up, catalog, and cat scan. Phrases can be used such as catnap or cat's got your tongue. Humor is often considered creative, such as using cool cat or putty tat. And there are also titles and rhymes, titles such as Cats, Cats in the Cradle, the song by Cat Stevens, or The Cat in the Hat, which is a book that everyone knows. Another practice technique is to teach team members to see the problem from a different point of view. For example, take a look at a penny. You can discuss what it's made from, which is, of course, you know, zinc and copper, and what sayings are associated with it. It cost a pretty penny, or pennies from heaven, or any unusual experiences that might be associated with it. For example, using salt and vinegar mix to make an old penny shine, and I've heard Coca-Cola can do that also. Or, this is new to me, making a cold compress by freezing pennies in an old sock. Or make bracelets or necklaces for some beautiful jewelry. So there's actually very different things that you can discuss and come up with your creative thinking when you're just looking at a simple penny. Being flexible with your thoughts also leads to magnifying, minimizing, and modifying. If the question is to name creative uses for a straw, a common answer would be to drink through it. However, if you magnify that straw, then you have a water well or a tunnel. Minimize it, and you might have a toothpick for a giant Bigfoot. Modify it by cutting it in half, and now you have 2 ski poles for your pygmy rabbit. In your beginning practice sessions, you might have some team fun making and utilizing toilet paper roll spyglasses to practice viewing items using magnify, minimize, and modify. Try it yourself. I did, just sitting in my living room looking at different things, and immediately my mind took off with some creative ideas. You might be amazed by what you see. Some additional ideas to help you teach the team how to generate creative responses are to practice wordplay, such as alliteration, idioms, and puns. So here's an example, and go ahead and throw an answer in the chat box for this. Why did Adele cross the road? Got any ideas out there? Why did Adele cross the road? I see to say hello. We're real close with that one. Aha, to say hello from the other side. So wordplay is always just super fun. Let's go on to practice combining ideas. So actively look for some different associations. For example, when you're outside, try spotting shapes in clouds. Or you might want to review the book named It Looked Like Spilt Milk. That's a really good one to use with young kids. Something else you can do is practice elaborating, such as instead of using the word dog as an answer to a problem, change it to become a faithful, noble dog. And then there's originality, something novel or something unusual, such as breakdancing on the moon. So here's the backstory for that statement. A team had begun their practices in October. Now it was January and nothing was coming together. They basically had to throw out all the ideas they had come up with up to that point. So the coach had them stop and brainstorm. Part of their official problem was to explain a team-created reason as to why the Easter Island statues came to be. And one team member came up with the very original idea of the man on the moon breakdancing and spinning so fast that he spun off the moon, flew down through the atmosphere, and landed burned on Easter Island as a statue. They went on to create an amazingly stylish Easter Island statue using that original thought as a focus. So as Joy explained in the very beginning of the evening, using brainstorming in your long term also helps you come up with originality and gives you great practice for your spontaneous problems. These ideas are all good, but remember to practice relating answers to the prompt of the original problem. Some other ways that coaches can train teams are as follows. Practice the flow of responding, particularly with brand new teams. You can have them sit in a circle and simply say their favorite color going around the circle. And this year, it may be a very good idea to practice with tokens and putting them into containers. You also can practice with favorite songs or favorite foods or favorite animals, and then advance to naming things maybe in a garage or things that are large. So this is a beginning step with a beginning team. You can also practice different voices when responding. A whisper voice, a duck voice, a baby voice, and a loud voice. Then as a team, decide which voice might be best to use when responding to judges in an actual tournament situation. Judges may or may not hear well. Practice elaborating. Take a common answer such as a plant and help that idea grow by turning it into a trigger hair Venus flytrap. And then as Logan and Nelson already talked about, you can turn the table to let team members act as a judge during team spontaneous practice, because that does give additional insights into the process. And then don't forget hands-on. Research, explore, and bring in an expert to demystify items which can be used as connectors. For example, clay, toothpicks, marshmallows, mailing labels, Play-Doh. And some items can be used as extenders, such as rulers or dowels or pencils. Transporters can be envelopes, cotton balls, and pieces of paper. These can all be used to carry things from one place to another. Then we have holders such as toothpicks or envelopes or cups. And finally, stabilizers such as index cards or pipe cleaners, paper clips, or paper tubes. And of course, there's a plethora of materials available that can fall into these categories. And I bet you can even find different categories of working with materials. Tournament days are fun and exciting, even for spont judges. Judges arrive on tournament day and are briefed by the spontaneous problem captain. Then they head to their competition space practice to practice reading and solving their assigned spont problem. The real excitement begins, however, when the first team arrives ready to solve the problem. And they are filled with confidence that they can meet the challenge because they have successfully solved so many problems in practice with their coach. Understand that judges observe teamwork, which is another portion that our former OMers, although once you're an OMer, you're always an OMer. Nelson and Logan did speak about this tonight. So as a judge, I'm looking at teamwork. What does it look like? What does it sound like? And the guys already talked about different roles. Casey had talked about listening, and Joy talked about asking clarifying questions. All of these things are very, very important. I'm going to touch on considering different member ideas, because I have seen some teams come in and a child will try to express their idea of how to do perhaps a hands-on problem. And guess what? Nobody's listening to them. And I've actually seen that be an excellent idea to solve the problem. But again, nobody's listening to that one idea. So it's really helpful if you practice making sure ideas are acknowledged, because sometimes they might be extremely important. And if there's a hands-on or perhaps a verbal hands-on, sometimes the work does need to be divided. How is the team going to figure that out? Well, with practice ahead of time. So those kind of situations you can end up practicing long before you ever end up in a tournament room. We also really like to see encouraging teammates. And it's very obvious if your team has practiced this before. It's actually very respectful and very helpful to keep the team working together very well during the tournament time. Listening well, make sure your eyes are on the judge or on the team copy, which would be lying on the table, because some children can listen very well and understand. Some children need to read and understand. And then those clarifying questions afterwards, the team members will sometimes, those who understand the problem will use their skills to clarify the questions so their teammates also can understand. So lastly, I have pulling from prior knowledge. It was really exciting to see a middle school team at World Finals do just that. They were to create a boat which would hold weight. And you could rename that a flotation device, so it doesn't have to look exactly like what you think a boat might be. But I remember one teammate reminding his team, hey guys, remember what we studied in science class? And they were talking about buoyancy. They ended up choosing to use only a piece of shaped foil as their flotation device, and it did hold more weight that day in the form of metal washers and quarters and other items. It held more weight than any other device in their division that day, and it was a very, very simple solution. So, final words. Practice spontaneous at every meeting. Coaches, keep it fun. If you're having fun, then the team will be too. And I wanted to bring up something that a colleague of mine taught me long ago. She was a third grade teacher, and from that point on, I used it with my students every year, and now with my grandkids. But here's a little rhyme. Mistakes are good. They help us grow. They teach us what we need to know. That could become part of your team repertoire. Mistakes are good. They help us grow. They teach us what we need to know, because kids do have to repeat things and they do learn how to make things better, but they're actually learning from some errors that may have been made. And it's fun to break through that and learn from it. So have fun, coaches. Creativity thrives in silliness. And as you can see from this picture, that's one of our Odyssey team members' meetings long ago for the state of California. But creativity also thrives in stillness. It's very good to sit with the team and practice taking even 3 deep breaths together before you start your team practice or your problem for that day. Get that oxygen into the body to help keep it calm and creative. Kids love challenges, so take some humor breaks, silly breaks, snack breaks, and then enjoy the journey. Thanks for supporting the teams, coaches, and many, many thanks to Joy and Casey for being here today, and Logan and Nelson. And I'm thrilled to have both of our association directors for California here today, Lynn Larson and Deidre Gerard. Many, many thanks to our spontaneous queen, Kathy Parker, for her persistence and brilliance in putting tonight's webinar together. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Jan. I love the ideas, and I have to say that I'm the one second in the right. There's Miss Jan with our old state director many, many years ago. We were super goofy that night. We had a lot of fun. So guys, we're really to the end of our presentation, and I think these are the biggest takeaways that you heard time and time again.
Kathy, can I jump in just before? Yeah, she's going to run through this, but don't leave if you have questions.
Oh, yes.
A couple questions for team. All of our presenters are going to stay to answer those questions. So go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to say, you heard it time and time again from every one of these presenters from every level. You've got to practice. And I think as a teacher, I want to practice these problems. I kind of think about sending them in where they have no clue about what to look for or whatever, or sending them in so they're comfortable and they can feel confident. When they see a problem, their eyes are going to sparkle. They're going to get excited. The debrief is a really big deal. We've been pushing this in California for a few years now. And we kind of hope, like Nelson and Logan were saying, that it becomes a debrief with the team members giving feedback and sharing ideas, because it gives them ownership of being an Odyssey. And you heard teamwork time and time and time again. And I know Logan told me when he's under pressure in a spontaneous room, you kind of fall back on the ways that the team works together. It kind of helps stabilize the situation. And the big thing that everybody is saying is to have fun. Spontaneous should be fun. I have watched kids in spot rooms run and laugh as they're chasing tennis balls all over the place. They're having the best time. That's what we love to see with you. And just one more slide, but I'm going to then stop sharing, so don't think I'm kicking you out, everybody. But I wanted to also remind you that when you log out, and don't log out now, you don't have to, you're going to get a little survey that's going to pop up immediately. And we'd like you to take a moment to answer the simple questions that are on there so that we'll get feedback on how this webinar worked for you. So we really thank you. I just wanted to say that. Don't leave though if you have questions. And we really want to say, like these kids down here on the at the table, thumbs up, California. I am so glad you team members and coaches were here tonight. I'm honored that California got to have Joy Kurtz from Florida, Casey Kaw from Michigan, Nelson Gerard from Colorado, Jan Johnson from North Carolina currently, although she's a desert girl in California usually, and Logan Caper from my very own Santa Rosa, California. We're so happy. Everybody's here to share and volunteer. We want you to have a good time with Spontaneous. And we're excited to see what you can do this season. So remember, when you do exit, but don't exit yet, please complete that survey. It helps us out a lot.
So I have a question to get us started here. So if you have questions, let's get them in the chat box, or give us a hands up so we know that you have a question. So my first question is actually for our old dudes, the team members, Logan and Nelson. So one of the situations is there's lots of old habits out there for spontaneous that have been being taught and passed on, but spontaneous changes. So you have to keep evolving with it. So I'm going to ask Logan and Nelson, when you walked in the room and you guys heard something that had to be involved with a story or a preconceived idea, did you guys always walk in with these package answers ready to go? And did those succeed for you if you ever tried those?
Yeah, so we've definitely attempted that before, thinking you're a genius going in with the idea already, but it almost never works. It's very tough to fit your story into a random problem that you don't know. So I think it's more successful when we can go in there and really create the story around the problem with what we know. Like, we're still drawing on stuff that we're comfortable with sometimes, but never going in with like, this is the plan, this is what everyone's going to do. So yeah, I think it pays off to have that instant creativity and everyone working together. Logan had to step out, so I'm all you got.
Peter, may I jump in there for a second?
Absolutely, Joy.
I also want to tell you that often when you're practicing a problem, a verbal, and the teams will write down or they'll think about their great responses. And then the next day, if you give them the same problem, you're going to see a lot of times, coaches especially, that they slow down because they're spending the time trying to remember what was that great thing I said yesterday. That's not effective for teams. So you're right, Nelson. It's much better to practice, but then just go in there and say whatever. And I also noticed something in the chat that said coaches can't help with long-term, but may help with spontaneous. Yeah, but coaches, be careful. Don't tell your teams how to solve it, because it's not a matter of helping the team. It's a matter of when you tell a team member what to do with, I'm going to take the straw, for example. If you say, well, you can cut the straw in half. Again, it's that same idea. They're going to try and remember what you told them to do rather than looking at the material and saying, what can I do? So just kind of bear that in mind. You want to help them, certainly, but you don't want to give them answers. If they come to the answer on their own, it's going to help them know where they're going the next time.
I have one more question, and then we'll quit picking on the old team members, the old dudes. When you guys, because we talk about everybody in this presentation has talked about teamwork, right? And it goes across long-term and spontaneous. But if you were in that room and you guys all worked, and sometimes you used roles and stuff, did one guy always just go in there, go, nope, I got the solution, and you guys only use that one person's solution and just went with that? Or what happened?
There's never a wrong answer or a bad solution. It's often it evolves and sparks something different, which comes to your final solution. But it's always got to be revolving around the team. And there's never a bad idea, I guess.
All right. Do we have?
I was going to ask Nelson a question too. You've got 8 minutes to solve a problem. Do you guys start with maybe one approach and then, this isn't going to work, but you've still got time to switch it around and go for a different approach?
Yeah, I guess that kind of ties back to what Deidre was saying. Yeah, so some of those ideas are often a little simpler or something like that. So it's often a good backup plan. So we would always create like 2 or maybe even 3 plans and shoot for the moon for the first plan. And then most of the time that doesn't work. So then you kind of dial it back to the second one. And then if you have to, the third plan. But when it's the very beginning of the problem, and that's the brainstorming phase, when everyone's just kind of spitting out ideas, that's when you kind of start getting a little bit of a hierarchy going with some backup plans and some really out there plans.
Let's
see. All right. And any questions for Joy or Casey or Jan? So you can ask, as you can't guess, that's my son. So, and I've judged and coached for a long time, but the laughter is the key, I think, because I've sat on the other side now as a judge, and I've sat on the coach's side with teams. And there was a couple sayings that we always had in our teams, which is teamworks or give me points, like he alluded to. You should be having a good time. You should be working together and having fun. And then those team points come because you're just having a great time, right? And the other saying that I said to them all the time when they went into long-term and for spontaneous was, if they're having fun, the judges are having fun with you. So if you guys are doing that, then it's everybody's smiling and having a great time, and really great things come out of that energy that's in that room. So I did challenge him. I said that the thing that you have, right, which he alluded to and talked about before, is the only thing you have that nobody else has in that room is your team members, you together. And I would throw that out at practices, and then funny things happen, coaches. Literally, I would have like a line and they had to get something to the other line. They started hanging their own team members out over the line and doing just like crazy things and having fun with it. Like Jan was alluding to with her story of carrying and not using your feet. truly teamwork and fun are a really key thing. And then Casey and Joy, really time and real important key is really listen and pay attention to the problem. And the other tip I always give teams is make sure you take in everything that's in that room that they're giving you to work with. So enjoy exploring all of that stuff. Kathy.
I gotta say, when I set up a spot room, and I've been like, I'm kind of anal about it, to be honest. I set it up seeing what the team is going to see the minute they come into that room. I want them to have time to look and start to analyze the way it's set up before they even hear what the problem is. They're going to figure out it's a hands-on or a verbal or whatever, but I want them to take in everything and start processing the minute the problem is start to be read. And we're going to try to make it as user-friendly for you as I can. As we can when we set those problems up. We're not trying to trip you up in any way. We're excited. We can't wait. I'm serious. We're nerds about these problems. We'll try them out, and I'll hear judges saying, I wonder if they'll do this. I wonder if they'll do that. Chances are they'll do something way more interesting than anything we could imagine. But we're there for you to be able to share everything. And I've been disappointed sometimes. I've heard teams come in with canned kind of things where I heard about one group that one girl had a great idea and she shared it. She tried to share it with her team. And the other one said, oh no, we're not supposed to use that. We're supposed to use this theme. And it was a bummer to the judges because all they can do is listen. They can't say, listen to her, please, please. She's got a great idea. So that's what I kind of feel that you need to be open to the problem, and these preconceived themes will cut off your opportunity to interact with the problem and have fun with it and just kind of let your mind go. So we're here for you. We want you to be successful. And I would also say too, that you don't have to have a formal spot problem from Odyssey of the Mind to practice problem solving or to practice any of this. There's something called brown bag challenges. You can just do a Google on those. They have a lot of fun challenges. And just something simple as take a piece of paper. Well, how long can you make this piece of paper stretch? That'll get the kids going too. Just simple activities to get them thinking differently about what's in front of them.
Jump right in, Jan.
Okay, there's a question from Rosie. And I think maybe Casey is best to answer this. For the spontaneous hands-on verbal with the tokens, will they be given the coins to split up how they want to? If one person only wants to give 2 answers and the rest of the team wants to do the remainder of the tokens? Also, if someone who has tokens left over, they are stuck, can they pass their token to another member of their team if they choose not to respond anymore?
Oh, sorry, Kathy, did you?
I was just going to say, it's going to look really different. You know, we're used to having a set of cards in front of every group in front of the table. And then a lot of kids, they'll pick up those cards. And then when it's their turn to respond, they'll put them in a container. These tokens are just going to be on the table. There are going to be a couple of containers to put your tokens into. You can get a handful of tokens if you want. Just make sure we can hear your response as you're putting it into a container. You don't have to put it in one container. So it's not formalized like it used to be. The team has X number of responses. It's up to the team to decide how they'll give those responses. And a trick I would say on those verbals is team, ask for the time remaining, even if it's not one of the official time points, because it's kind of a clue. You've got a lot of time left, so think, don't just get rid of those responses quickly and do commons, or hurry it up, like Casey was saying, and make sure that you get at least all those points. You can help yourself out that way, team, but it's really up to the team. I'm so excited. All 7 are going to be in there.
Yeah, and just because you pick up the tokens and you've got them in your hand, if all of a sudden you're stuck as a team member, if you get stuck, put it back on the table, hand it off. If you haven't given a response yet, you don't have to relinquish that token. So again, that whole, if one member of the team is stuck, the team is stuck, that doesn't apply anymore. It's gone.
Hey, Casey, while you're answering questions, and Joy, we had a question in the chat box that was asking, do I get way more points if I use all my materials when I'm in there?
I put the answer in the chat box for that. This is a case where you must listen to the problem. In some cases, you might get more points using all the materials. In some cases, you may get less points. And in some cases, it may not matter at all. Again, for hands-on problems, it's really, really important that you listen to the specific directions of that problem. And then if you're not sure, you can ask the judges that question. You can say, do I get more points if I use them all?
And don't forget, you have that team copy. At least 2 copies of the problem will be printed for the team, and the scoring is always on that team copy. So you can refer back to that and look and see where you get your points, where maybe you get bonus points or whatever it is.
I was going to say the toothpick challenge that I sent out to kids, it had some points that could be available for a creative use of materials. It, you know, if there's not like points for materials kept out or whatever, then it's kind of the judge's opinion on how the team is using those materials. I have a buddy who was an engineer. He thinks it's more creative and efficient if you use the fewer materials. He thinks you've analyzed and gotten rid of the frou-frou stuff and you've gotten down to the meat of it. And his opinion works for some of these teams. Other judges love to see you incorporate everything. So it kind of depends on the opinion of the judges on that particular one. If there's nothing in the problem that says you get points for holding material back.
All right, any other questions out there? Because I know it's getting late and kiddos need to be heading different directions. All right, Kathy, it looks like you're pretty good. I don't see any bright new questions here. So do you want to wrap it up or would you like me to wrap it up?
Well, I want to say thank you again. And we've got a few people still here who stayed to the faithful end. We are just so glad you came to this opportunity tonight. I think that what was shared by all the levels of Odyssey is invaluable. As a coach, I wish I'd had a Nelson and a Logan to tell me what it's like from the team perspective. And I love the independence that they both talked about. They weren't relying on their coaches. They relied and kind of built that teamwork up, and through a lot of experimentation, they were amazing. I wish we had Joy in California back when I was starting in '86, but that didn't happen and with all of this. But I'm just so thrilled that you folks who were here had the opportunity to have this dream team of panelists that we were allowed to put together. We're so happy everybody said yes, and so appreciative of everyone. And thanks to Deidre for setting up this series of presentations. We have one more webinar coming up the road that'll be about paperwork, and she's got some gurus that are going to sit in on that one and share their wisdom with you as well a little later down the season.
Deidre, may I say one thing?
Absolutely, Joy.
I just want to tell you that California is really lucky to have Kathy as their spontaneous person. What you probably don't know, but from my perspective, when those problems come out and all, Kathy's the first one to look at them and say, I think I found a problem, or I have a question, or is this what you mean? And boy, she is so sharp and right on. So you guys are in great shape, as are all your coaches and teams. So thank you, Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
We know she's a treasure. She can't leave. She's like you. You can't leave. Like, we need to hang on to you guys. So I want to thank everybody. I know Lynn Larson's here somewhere, and I'm sure she's going to thank you here in just a second. Thank you all for being here. I think the takeaways, like they've already hit, but the bottom line is just have a really good time with your team. I know this year's a little bit funky, and everybody's ready. Just so coaches, so you know, don't panic. This is where you're supposed to be pulling out your hair and having a little bit of a freak out. It's okay. We're all right there with you. But at the same time, know that everybody's in the same spot as you are. So you guys are going to rock it when you get to the tournaments. Definitely join us for the paperwork. Presenters, hang on until everybody else gets off. Lynn, do you want to say a thank you or two?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thank you, everybody, as you're signing off. We really appreciate you hanging in here till the end. We're thrilled to present these webinars this year. We'll keep them going. We, like Kathy said, we have paperwork webinar coming up. Please get registered for your regional tournament as soon as possible so we can get that planned. Registrations are kind of slow coming in. So get your team registered and we'll see you at your regional tournament.
Thank you, everybody. Good luck. May the spont be with you, teams.
All right, so presenters, if you don't mind hanging on just for like 5 or 10 minutes, we usually do a quick debrief after everybody jumps off.
Oh, we got some yay Kathy Parkers. That's nice. Oh, you did? Well, you got it going.
Right. Just a few more.
There was Bruce McKinley in there. Hey.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, you guys, you made my dreams come true tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so awesome. Every part of it. I'm just so excited. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Expect